So today I think we really need to have a discussion about water. For the first time ever, Wall Street has put water on the futures exchange. And before I get into all the details of that, I think we need to first take time to remember how valuable water is. It is a right, a human right, according to the United Nations. The average human can only survive 3 days without clean water. And if you have polluted water, or bacteria-ridden water, that can significantly lower the amount of time you can go without water. Water is life. Without it, we will all die. We will perish without clean drinking water. So getting into this particular understanding that water is now on the futures market, I want to cover this from 3 different positions. 1, what is all of this, and what is the presumed capitalist benefit from this particular move? 2, what is the dystopian nature of all this from my perspective? What is the breakdown of the just lack of reality that I think a lot of these people who are trading on this actually are seeing? And 3, what are some possible solutions to this problem? So getting into this, Market Insider posted this article, Water Futures Set to Join the Likes of Gold and Oil and Trade on Wall Street for First Time Ever. The article explains that the contracts will allow investors and farmers alike to bet on the future price of water. So in order to understand the full extent of what they mean by betting, I need to explain what a future is exactly. I'm going to use oil as an example because it's one that's typically used. What it basically does is it locks in price for future purchases. So if I am someone who wants to buy 100 barrels of oil, I would say, I'm going to buy 100 barrels of oil 6 months from now at a price that's locked in and created. So the person agrees to sell me 100 barrels of oil, and I agree to purchase it at a later date at a set price. What this does is it ignores market fluctuations on those commodities. So if oil rises or lowers, regardless, I'm paying a set rate and I can predict my prices based on the speculations of what is coming in the future. So the gambling part, the betting part, is you can choose as an investor, do I want to buy the 100 barrels of oil 6 months from now when I believe the price might be lower? Or do I want to purchase it now because the price might be higher in 6 months? And so it's a gambling. It's really just a gambling situation where people take a large amount of risk on the fluctuating prices of supply and demand and the movements of different countries and resources and the attempted prediction of prices and everything, even around issues of natural disasters, to try to maximize profit. And we are now doing that with water. The good thing about water in this particular case, and I do have to admit this is a very, very good thing compared to how we typically deal with commodities. Typically in the oil scenario, if you get oil, then you can let the contract expire and obtain 100 barrels of oil. With the water, you can't obtain it, which the article says, while water officially joins the likes of gold, oil, and other commodities in being traded on Wall Street, the contracts will be financially settled. This means buyers of contracts who hold on through expiration won't be greeted by a delivery of millions of gallons of water like they would for other commodity-based futures like oil and grain. So just like getting to the point of that, oil, if I waited and let that contract expire, I would get 100 barrels of oil. But I don't want to do that if I'm an investor. I want to then push it forward into the next futures market where I try to sell it again and try to make money between the price I bought it at and the price I'm selling it, and constantly try to move that forward. That's the goal of an investor. But in this case, they're not using the actual water. They're using certificates that represent that much water. So one of the proposed benefits from a lot of capitalists right now with this particular move is that farmers in places where there are droughts, like California, will have the opportunity to predict the price of water in the near future. So if I'm a farmer and I want to purchase water for my farm, and I want to know how much that water is going to cost me, I can lock a price in ahead of time so I know how much crops to put into the ground, because I'll know how much water I can have access to and how much I can do this. So in that regard, there is a small benefit to farming practices when water starts to get scarce. And if it was just being done for farmers, I would essentially agree that this is a good practice. It could help save a lot of water in the long run, and it provides more incentive under capitalism to keep farmers producing food, which of course we need, and we need water to grow that food. Where problems come into play, and where this gets a little dystopian, is Michael Burry, who is an investor. He highlighted as one of his top investment ideas following the financial crisis of 2008, as he sees the demand for life-sustaining natural resources to continue climbing, and as supply falls due to population growth and climate change. Think about that for 1 second. This is someone who saw the housing crisis of 2008, who saw people on the street, who saw people in all of the trauma that we've gone through with rising college prices and not being able to pay student loan debts and jobs disappearing. And this is somebody who said, you know what's a great idea? Let's commodify water. As people start to lose water over the next 20 years, let's make money off of it. And this comes at a place where investors can now buy up supplies of water in the form of these certificates when there's a drought going on in California, when there are wildfires burning through California. And if I haven't made it clear, that this exchange is in California particularly right now. So I'm bringing up California a lot because of that particular aspect. This is sick. This is honestly sick that we can start getting into this type of situation, where we're talking about making profit, huge amounts of profit, off of water supplies. Off of water supplies when, as the article does mention, with nearly 2/3 of the world's population expected to face water shortages by 2025, water scarcity presents a growing risk for businesses and communities around the world. By 2025, 2/3 of the world's population is going to be dealing with water shortages. And we're talking about a system that wants to prioritize making money off of this. There's no words to explain the level of cruelty that comes in when water, which is a necessity of life, is being used and bought and sold as a commodity based on the market, when people need it to drink in order to survive. And people are talking about being able to buy and sell it as an investment or as a futures exchange. Now, here's one of the things I am afraid of, right? I am afraid that over time, this is going to lead to hoarding of water as it becomes more and more scarce. That some of the restrictions might move and shift, and that we might see a movement where a lot of people with a lot of wealth and money can hoard water. And that's generally how these type of things work, right? Like if you own all of the contracts and the contract law shifts, you would technically have a right to all of that water. That means the purchasing of entire water supplies. And this is the direction we're going in. And the scary part about this is because of how much money can be made off of the scarcity of water, there is no incentive in capitalism right now to produce more water. There's none. The less supply that we get, the more the demand goes up from population increase, the more people, like these investors, can make money off of it because as demand rises and supply falls, prices go up. The only blessing in all of this dystopianism is the fact that this acknowledges climate change. If you ever find someone who's conservative or reactionary who wants to deny climate change, look at this particular article. And I know I just showed it, but look at the green word. The reason this person speculated all this was from climate change. These are people who are in the business of making as much money as possible in this particular market. If they are citing climate change as a reason, I know science should have been enough. Science should have been enough, but it's not, clearly. Like, it hasn't worked. But maybe try to convince some of the conservative types, if you have to deal with them in your life, that climate change is real because people are investing in the future market of water, and they know that the fluctuating price of water in a futures market will guarantee them money as supplies go down, and that is because of climate change. So we now have a focus on what the issue is. We now know what's going on and why the capitalists want this, and we know the dystopian nature of this, the fact that we are commodifying and controlling water supplies, and the scary parts about it. What are potential solutions that either governments could invest in or that society as a whole could push towards? Well, for one, we need to stop poisoning water supplies. We need to stop poisoning viable water supplies in the country, and we need to stop doing it worldwide. An example, in 2005, Coca-Cola destroyed and contaminated a water supply and polluted the environment in a South Indian bottling plant, and all they had to do was pay $47 million in compensation. This is just one of many, many, many examples across the world of water supplies being poisoned. This happens all the time. And that's not even counting situations like Flint, Michigan, where you had lead pipes contaminating citizens. And there was some, at least rumors that I've heard, that there was more contaminants in there than just lead. But at the very least, we can guarantee that there was lead in those water pipes. And it was poisoning people. And that turns perfectly good, clean drinking water into contaminated water. And yes, Flint has cleaned up a lot of its act over the time. But how much of situations like that can we handle if water's becoming completely scarce? The second issue from the US that I want to bring up is Standing Rock. The Dakota Pipeline runs under the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. If those rupture, like a lot of people have been worried about, the reason the whole Standing Rock incident happened, not just because it was going through Native American lands and just respecting their rights to things, and you had water protectors literally arguing about this years ago, they want to protect this water because if that pipe ruptures, you are talking about contaminating two of the largest sources of drinking water in the United States, the Mississippi and Missouri rivers. We need to stop putting water supplies at risk. If we're running out of it, we need to stop hurting ourselves. And again, the downside to all of this is there's no incentive for companies to do anything about it, because if it ruptures, they pay a little fee, they move on with their lives, and they'll just start shifting their money into the water futures. Because as the supply of fresh water goes down, of good, clean drinking water goes down, again, as I stated, prices go up and they make money. And they know how to play those markets. That's literally what they do. The second thing is we need to stop wasting water on frivolous things. And I'm going to call it out right now. I know there's a lot of other sources that I can go to for this, but I am going to take one specific example that I find to be one of the most egregious. Golf. And that's golf specifically in deserts. This is a golf course. You are looking at a golf course in a desert. All of this grass is not natural to this environment. All of this had to be placed there, grown there, and constantly watered to handle the arid climate, because otherwise it will die. So how much water does a course like this take? Well, specifically, a par 3 course is approximately 75 acres of grass, because it's usually got nine holes, which is half of the standard 18, and an 18-hole course will run about 150 acres. So you're talking between 75 and 150 acres of land that has to be converted into having a good amount of grass. And as you've seen, like, I'm not arguing that every bit of it's grass or anything like that, but that's still a huge chunk of water. Well, the United States Golf Association estimates that in dry climates, which you can read right here, in hot, dry climates, they may require as much as 6 acre-feet of water per acre per year. How do we translate 6 acre-feet of water per acre per year into any sort of terminology that we understand as people who drink water on the daily? If you're someone who drinks water in the US, you're probably dealing with the system of quarts and gallons, right? Like, for the most part. And if you're someone who's from outside the US watching this, a quart is approximately a liter, give or take, and a gallon is about 3.75 gallons, more or less. So you'll be able to more or less do the conversions in that particular way. But basing it on the US measurements and what people here are accustomed to, 6 acre-feet per water per acre per year. So per year, per acre, we know that there's now 75 to 150 acres on a golf course, 75 on the one that we showed. So what does 6 acre-feet of water look like? 6 acre-feet of water, according to Google translation, is almost 2 million. It is 1,955,119 and decimal point moving forward gallons of water per year, rounding that to the 2 million gallons of water. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits. I need to just keep that in mind. 2 million gallons of water per acre per year. Do the math on that. That's 150 million gallons of water per year for this golf course. 2 million times 75 acres. If it was the larger style of golf course, that would be double. So, can we stop wasting water on frivolous things like this? Can we stop ending up in situations where we have to do this kind of thing in a desert? This is a huge waste of resources. And I know there's a lot of other places like this that we can deal with. You know, football stadiums are approximately an acre large, right? So that's using a significant amount of water as well. But not nearly as much as a golf course, right? So that's one other solution. The final solution is that we start producing more water. And so how do we do something like that? Well, one potential idea that is proposed is to take wastewater or storm drainage. So when a storm happens and it makes a lake flood, have the water carry over into irrigation lands so that it would be used to irrigate land. It is probably the least clean water. You use that to irrigate the land, and you leave clean drinking water available for people who need to drink it. That system works. It has some downsides. You need to be really, really secure in the fact that the water that's running off of the storm, or when wastewater is repurposed, that it's properly cleansed, and that it actually is not contaminating the soil, because you could run into a lot of other problems. The system I would like to see explored more honestly, is desalinization plants. And I think if we get these across the globe running in more and more efficiency, we would be at a much better place. Just to go through the statistics, there have been a lot more desalination plants as of late. And we know for a fact that one certain desalination plant in Singapore, which opened in 2018, can produce 30 million gallons of fresh water per day. And what this process does, is it takes water from the ocean, takes the salt out of it, and makes clean water. There are waste factors involved. There are energy factors involved that really come into this. There's also the issue that some of the water lacks iodine, and iodine is considered to be a very important part of the human diet. And usually you find iodine in most water supplies. So that is potential issues with desalinization. But I ask what the greater cost of not doing desalinization is, or these other processes, right? What is the greater cost? Humans across the globe by 2025 are not going to have adequate supplies of water. That's 4 years from now. We're right on the cusp of that. And as we move forward, water is going to become more and more scarce. If we don't start doing things, people are going to suffer, people are going to die. And capitalism right now does not seem to have the incentive. Corporations do not seem to have the incentive with this type of future market behavior to fix the problem, because they will make more money off of the scarcity than they will from having it widely available to people. So we need, while we're in this world, while we're in capitalism with governments and everything, we need governments starting to subsidize these plants. Obviously, I'd advocate for socialism or, anarchism, where we'd all get together and we'd find people who are capable of building these desalinization plants, and we'd have this horizontal structure where we'd come up with ways to deal with the waste management and make sure everybody on the planet has water. We don't live in that reality right now. So right now we have to appeal to governments and hope that they will start the process of getting clean, fresh water, of minimizing the waste of the water that we're using, and stop, for the love of everything, stop allowing companies to pollute perfectly good water resources that we have available to us right now across the globe. Make water supplies public commodities and let them be run by the people. With that said, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the bell for notification. You can follow me on Twitter and check out my Discord in the description down below. And my name is Anarchist Tara, and I hope you enjoyed watching, and I hope you have plenty of water and stay hydrated.